Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the OMSI editor series. This is the second installment of the series. Before I start, I would like to apologize for the 2-year hiatus I have taken. I've been awfully busy the last couple of years. I was attending high school at the time of making the last video and was due to graduate. This came with the task of picking and signing up for a university to attend. And before you know it, you're attending a university and all your time is taken up by studying and working at the supermarket to pay the tuition fee. Alright, with that out of the way, let's recap on what we did last time. By the way, if you haven't seen last episode, I highly recommend you watch that first, as it instructs you on how to set up the editor and the map files. Last time we set up the editor either by making a shortcut or by editing the launch options in Steam. Then we added the map files to get an empty new map. In this episode, I will guide you through the editor and show you how to navigate through the menus. After that, I will show you how to load and place objects and streets. But before we start the editor, I have one small addition to the files. It might be small, but it's very important if you want to have trains running in your map, as they won't be rendered correctly by default. So just to reiterate, if you want any type of train running on your map, please do the following step, because the problem it creates if you don't do this is annoying and hard to diagnose as the documentation doesn't mention it. Even when googling in German, it's way hard to find. In the map folder, open the global.cfg file and below next ID code add the word RealRail in brackets. It's that easy. Now I don't know why it isn't enabled by default, but this is what your trains may look like when it isn't enabled. And this is what they should look like. Let me start by showing you how to navigate the editor. Your most important tools can be found on the right hand side of the screen. This menu consists of two lists of tabs, one with big tabs and one with small tabs. The small tabs is where you find yourself most often. The big tabs are not that useful in my opinion. The only big tab you'll be using somewhat often is the environment tab. In this tab you can set the time of day, the day of the year and if there's snow or not. And a really important one, you can set the traffic lights to speed up 5 times. Let's continue with the small tabs. The tile tab is what you use to make and delete tiles on which you build your map. You can also add water to the tile. This makes it possible to make lakes and rivers. I'll go through the objects in the Splines tab in detail later in this video. The terrain tab is for highering and lowering of the terrain. You can also paint on the terrain. In the traffic rules tab you can set speed limits and other rules for certain parts of the road. Splines are your roads and your pavements. You load them by pressing the load button and navigating the folders to the spline you want to open. I really recommend downloading Simple Streets and Creative Streets. The links to these can be found in the description below. Once you've selected the spline you want to use, you can press N to spawn a new piece of spline. You can lay this down by left clicking. Splines that have already been laid down can be rotated by pressing R and moved by pressing G. On the right, you can change the spline to bend, where the angle is how far it bends and the radius how wide the bend is. You can also change its length, gradient, height difference between start and end, and the cant. To connect new splines to existing ones, you need to change the control in the settings. You have to change this in the main game. So open the main game, go to settings and change the control G editor change node from just F9 to control plus F9. When holding control, the new spline will snap to other paths. When the wrong two paths connect, for example the pavement with a road, press F9 to choose another path. The Complete 2 button lets the computer calculate and place a spline between two existing ones. For this, you need to click two paths you want to connect. Objects are all the other things you can find on any map, and they are loaded in the same way as splines, with the one exception that you can load a whole folder of objects at once. They are also placed, rotated and moved in the same manner as the splines, so you place them with N, move them with G and rotate them with R. When placing or rotating anything, you can hold Ctrl to snap it to the grid. In the menu on the right, you can also change the pitch and the bank of an object. The Attach to Object button lets you attach an object to another object. A good example is the bus stop sign. This sign has attachment points for line number plates. The number to the right is which attachment point you want the object to attach to. The Label button is used to modify text on the object or sometimes to configure settings on some objects. The To Spline button lets you attach an object to a spline. This function is very handy for street lanterns, as you can set the object to repeat on a set amount of distance. The Distance field is how far apart you want the objects to be, and the Range field is for how far you want the objects to go. The Auto Rotate All button randomly rotates all objects of the selected type on the map. And finally, the Parent 2 button is primarily used for traffic lights. I'll show this in detail in the next section. Before we can discuss traffic lights, we first have to make a crossing to attach the traffic lights to. While I do that, I also add some more detail to our map. When you have placed a crossing or a junction, you'll want to add the traffic lights to direct the traffic. These lights need to be connected to the crossing. You do this by pressing the Parent 2 button while having the traffic light selected. You then click the crossing. To configure the traffic lights, you press the Options button and enter the correct number for the traffic light. Then press OK. If you are unsure if you've set the traffic lights correctly, you can check this in the game itself. If the cars do not obey the traffic lights, you have set them incorrectly and should change the traffic light number. In this case, I've set them correctly. Alright people, I think I've shown you enough stuff for an entire episode. Like this video if you liked it, dislike if you did not. If you have any questions or suggestions, please put them in the comments. In the next episode I want to cover creating a bus route and the traffic rules. I hope to see you then. But until then, good luck building your map.